Hey all, it's Maxine Dugan with another version of Dominate the Nation. I'm a currently working prostitute of 30 plus years, and I pretty much plan on working as a prostitute for another 30 plus more. And I'm gonna give some information today, updating all of that crazy Super Bowl propaganda. Oops. Anyway, so this is what I want to talk about today is just all the crazy arrests that have happened around, the Super Bowl and, how they're arresting people for prostitution. And let's get started with the Los Angeles DA begins filing charges following human trafficking operations. So the subtitle here says over 500 suspected traffickers arrested in California, including 230 across LA County. Wait, LA County? Isn't that like still on fire? So let's see. We've got Operation Reclaim and Rebuild conducted January 26th to February 1st. As part of a statewide initiative carried out every January to celebrate National Human Trafficking Month. So for National Human Trafficking Prevention Month, they arrest a bunch of people for prostitution. Taxpayer money down the toilet. Hear that flushing sound? Yes, I do. Anyway, so more than 100 law enforcement agencies, 100 law enforcement agencies throughout California participated, resulting in 547 arrests, including both suspected sex traffickers or exploiters and suspected sex buyers. Yeah, these are definitely prostitution sting operations. Authorities also rescued nearly 180 adults and minors believed to be human trafficking victims. So they're suspected victims and suspected human traffickers. Okay, a lot of numbers here. 75 arrests were made on the Figueroa corridor, which is an estimated 3-mile-long stretch in South Figueroa Street in South Los Angeles. So yeah, this is definitely Los Angeles during the fires, that over 100 law enforcement agencies were able to be funded to go run around and do misdemeanor prostitution sting operations. Those sting operations where they get to pretend like they're customers or pretend like they're sex workers and arrest a bunch of people for prostitution. During one of the most epic fires in LA history. Yeah, that talks about your public dollar priority there. It's in the wrong place. So let's see, they say that the Figueroa corridor and the Sepulveda Boulevard in the San Fernando Valley areas are historically known for prostitution. Yeah, historically. Yeah, we've been there a long, long time. So to help combat the widespread prevalence of human trafficking, including forced prostitution and labor, the LAPD launched the Valley Bureau Human Trafficking Task Force in 2015 with anti-trafficking operations. So anti-trafficking operations is a euphemism for prostitution sting operations, because even though they say forced prostitution and labor, they're not setting up anti-sting operations to find out who's trafficking domestic workers or house cleaners, nannies. They're not doing sting operations for those things. They are actually arresting people right now for not having, the government special documents to be in this country, and they're deporting people. That's what they're actually doing. But apparently what they're actually doing too are prostitution sting operations in the middle of some of the most epic fires in Los Angeles. So it says that juvenile trafficking victims suspected victims that were rescued, including one 14-year-old, 3 15-year-olds, and one 16-year-old and two 17-year-olds. So, this is a problem here with this reporting. By the federal definition, anybody under 18 working in the sex trade is automatically considered a sex trafficking victims. But apparently, by the LA County, they're considered suspected victims of trafficking. So anybody that's working in prostitution that's under 18 years of age is a sex trafficking victim by the federal standard. So, LA County apparently is confused that juveniles in the sex industry are suspected trafficking victims. Or maybe they were just kids on the street and they decided, we're going to pick you up and put you in protective custody anyway, just because you're young. You look like you're young. We're going to pick you up. So protective custody means that they were put in kid jail. They were put in juvenile hall. That's what protective custody is. You can't arrest kids for prostitution in California, thank God. So I don't have a criminal record for that. But you can be held in protective custody if the police decide you kind of look like a hoe kid, the way you're dressed or what street you're walking down. Yeah, you can go to jail. They can pick you up without any probable cause and just put you in jail. And apparently all these suspected sex trafficking victims are receiving support from the LA County Department of Children and Family Services. Well, Department of Children and Family Services, those kids wouldn't have been on the street in the first place if you had been doing your job. I mean, that's why kids are on the street, right? Because there are no social services in this country, right? Prostitution is the social safety net in this country. I might not like that fact. You might not like that fact, but that's a fact. But yet we see this cop go on and say, these numbers represent a life reclaimed, a future restored, and a victory for justice. He sounds like kind of a preacher, doesn't he? Sounds like a religious, that's kind of a religious statement coming out of a cop's mouth. That's interesting. So he's saying that putting kids in juvenile hall means that their life is going to be reclaimed and restored, when we all know that the research clearly shows that kids that are involved in juvenile hall have less of an opportunity for education. They're less likely to be housed after their stay in juvenile hall. They're less likely to be fed properly. And, they can always go back to the streets, I guess, because prostitution is the social safety net in this country, as it turns out. But apparently there was one person that was charged. He was charged for he was charged with multiple felonies, including human trafficking of a minor for commercial sex and human trafficking of an adult, and is facing 70 years in jail. So out of all those people, they filed charges on one person. So that's kind of interesting, huh? And on the same day, the LA County District Attorney and local authorities announced the arrest from Operation Reclaim and Rebuild, that the Board of Supervisors of LA unanimously approved a motion authored by the Chair Pro Tem Hilda L. Solis and co-authored by Supervisor Lindsay P. Havrath to explore creating a countywide human trafficking prevention coordinating body. So are they talking like in the middle of all these fires where, hundreds of thousands of people were displaced and tens of thousands lost their homes and businesses, that they're spending public money on yet another human trafficking prevention junket? I mean, it doesn't make sense to me. Supervisor Hilda Solis, she's Obama's former, Secretary of Labor. We're not doing stings to find out who is trafficking people into, domestic cleaning, nanny, building. The Trump administration is deporting a bunch of people who, don't have the right documents So I'm confused about the clash of priorities here and what's exactly going on in LA at the time of these epic fires, that they got all this time to, arrest all these people, rescue all these kids by putting them all in jail. I mean, that is weird. That is totally weird. So yeah, this is the new LA County District Attorney, Nathan Hotchman, and his, 100 law enforcement agencies. Weird. So speaking of displacement along the Figueroa corridor, we have coming up a really you don't want to miss this. This presentation is called Resist and Displacement, Sex Worker Activism and Anti-Trafficking Policies in Olympic Cities, Spotlighting Los Angeles, because Los Angeles is the place where the 2028 Olympics are going to be held. So this is a online event that is being sponsored by the Erotic Service Providers Legal Education and Research Project, the Sidewalk Project in LA. It's also being sponsored by the UCLA Law School, Public Interest and Policy Epstein program, not that Epstein, but there's a public interest law and policy section there at UCLA Law School, where the UCLA Law School students have worked on this report about the displacements of people in the run-up to the Olympics, and specifically in Los Angeles on that Figueroa corridor, as was just talked about in the previous just report from the San Fernando Valley Sun. So this discussion is in this report about the displacement is going to happen Thursday, February 27th, from 5 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. Pacific time, and 8 p.m. to 9:30 Eastern time. So you see that QR code there? You can click on that to register to come to that event. That's a definitely not miss event.